In part 1, we looked at the historicity of Jesus. In part 3, we're going to look at a very specific apologetic for the resurrection. In this section, we're going to look at a bridge topic, and that is the place of miracles in the Christian faith. So things at times happen that are beyond our ability to explain naturally. Now, as Christians, we're open to the supernatural as an explanation. Those who don't believe in the supernatural may say something like, "Oh, you Christians don't understand it," and you just say, "Then a miracle occurs." And they see it as giving up too easily or trying to find places for God to fit in a world where science makes God unnecessary. But of course, miracles matter a lot to us as Christians. The heart of our faith is resurrection. That's a miracle that must have occurred in order for our faith to be valid. For a resurrection, you need an incarnation, and that's a miracle. For the world in which the incarnation occurs, you need a creation, and that's a miracle. For the new life that Christ offers to all of us, we need a miracle. You get the idea. So as always, it's going to be important to define terms because we use miracle in a lot of different ways. We talk about the miracle of birth. We say there are miracle finishes in sports matches. I used Miracle Grow in my garden, which may not have been the best term for it, both Miracle Grow and garden. And when Michigan beats Ohio State in football, well, then we say that's a miracle. So here are some different definitions that have been proposed for the word miracle. Merriam-Webster says, a miracle is an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. David Hume says a miracle is a violation of the laws of nature. Those are two very different definitions. Here's the definition that we'll use today. A miracle is a supernatural interaction with the world in which an event that would not have otherwise occurred does occur. So now that we have that definition, let's look at three main objections. Objection 1. The world as we see it is defined by predictability or uniform experience. Miracles are so unique, so unusual, so improbable that it's more probable that the testimony for miracles is false than that the event is true. It's a paraphrase of an argument from David Hume. So I would simply respond by saying, well, yeah, we need evidence for things that happen, whether they're miraculous or not, if we want to prove that they're true. Every event in the history of the world is unique. I'm here right now doing this. It's never been done before. It'll never be done again. Many events are unusual, as in Michigan does sometimes beat Ohio State. Some events are improbable. I mean, the Lions could go to the Super Bowl. Uniform experiences are just like an average. They tell us a lot about life in general, but not necessarily about life in detail. Here's some actual events. On December 24, 1971, Julianne Kopecky was with her mother and 91 other people on an airplane that got struck by lightning and exploded in midair. The blast sent Julianne hurtling into a Peruvian jungle from 10,000 feet while still strapped into her seat. She sustained a broken collarbone, a swollen eye, and a cut on the arm, and then waded downstream for 9 days without her glasses before finding a canoe and paddling to civilization. Betty Lou Oliver was in the Empire State Building on July 28, 1945, when a plane hit the building. She was thrown from her elevator on the 75th floor and severely burned by the fire resulting from the crash. Firefighters put her back in the elevator to send her down for medical attention. The cables promptly snapped, and she went into a free fall for 75 stories, and she survived and was back at work 5 months later. Now, the fact that these things were extraordinary does not mean they're not true. C.S. Lewis noted another problem with Hume's argument. If there is absolutely uniform experience against miracles, in other words, they've never happened, well, then they've never happened. Unfortunately, we know the experience against them to be uniform only if we know that all the reports of them are false. And we know all the reports are false only if we know already that miracles have never occurred. In fact, we're just arguing in a circle. Objection number 2. Natural explanations can be provided for most miraculous claims, and if not, it's just because we don't understand the world well enough yet. Think quantum physics, for example. Well, my response would be, that's like saying, I can't explain this event by my criteria, but what I don't know is still more promising than the explanation you give for what you claim you do know. Here's an analogy that Tim McGrew gives. Deep in the heart of a great forest, a bird who has never seen a human being lives in contentment at the top of a large and flourishing tree. One day he flies miles to the north and spends a day eating grubs in a marsh. The day is clear and fine with scarcely a cloud. When the bird returns in the evening, the tree where he has lived lies flat upon the ground, neatly severed at the base. Now our bird knows that trees with dead branches sometimes snap and fall in the wind or even collapse under their own weight. He knows that severe storms can split or knock down even an apparently healthy tree. But in his experience, without exception, healthy trees do not suddenly fall on sunny days. Yet there the tree lies. What is the bird to think, and what should his skeptical friends think of his testimony that the tree did indeed fall? Well, in all of the bird's experience up until now, man had never played a role. But now his world has been invaded by a higher order of being that can make things happen the bird has never experienced or imagined. The generalization he has formed, that healthy trees, left to themselves, do not fall down on sunny days, is true as far as it goes, but this tree was not left to itself. I asked a skeptical friend once what it would take to believe in miracles. It became clear pretty quickly that nothing would convince him. No matter how much scientific evidence I suggested or how many eyewitnesses I could produce, he said he would always believe that we just don't understand something about the natural world. No matter what, in other words, we've been left to ourselves. So Christians are often accused of citing a God of the gaps to explain things they don't understand. But there are always gaps. Everyone believes something or someone will fill them. If no natural criteria can explain an event, it's at least worth considering that a non-natural explanation, something or someone beyond what we know, has interacted with our world. Perhaps we've not been left to ourselves. Objection number 3 goes something like this. Miracles undermine the laws of nature. This makes the efforts of science useless because science relies on a predictable cause-effect universe. I've heard an analogy comparing God's miraculous intervention in the world to the way events are influenced inside a fishbowl. If someone bumps a table supporting a fishbowl, the pebbles will shake and the water will ripple. If the fish are committed to seeking an explanation only inside the fishbowl, because they don't believe anything exists outside the fishbowl, they'll never find an adequate explanation for what happened. Maybe they think believing otherwise allows for a God of some sort who violates the laws of nature in the fishbowl. But we, however, know that if the fishbowl hadn't been affected, laws governing all of reality, not just the reality of the fishbowl, would have been broken. In other words, an orderly and predictable world absorbs and reacts to miracles. Not responding to a supernatural movement would actually be the problem. I like C.S. Lewis's response from his book Miracles. Miracles, if they occur, must, like all events, be revelations of that natural harmony of all that exists. In calling them miracles, we do not mean that they are contradictions or outrages. We mean that, left to her own resources, that is nature's own resources, she could never produce them. There are rules behind the rules and a unity which is deeper than uniformity. So the question of miracles is not can they happen, but have they happened, do they happen, and why? All of which we'll look at a little more directly as we discuss the resurrection in the next episode.